invite mo na ito ang tanan sa Zumba Pop.
Attorney Janine.
Hi, Attorney Janisha. Smile. Dili mas masarap.
First, yeah, for me first. First, yung...
Basig teacher siya.
Happy ang childhood. First na. Hi, Ma'am Eda.
Giyunahan magiguni mo. Pero pwede daw ka mamista ila Doktora Solidong. O, ningon siya gay na, pamista lang mo dito. Oh, ready lang.
Good day, sunshines! Another day, another chikahan with us. I am your low-key mysterious girl, Aubrey Raven Lucica.
Welcome to another Wednesday dose of happiness and positive vibration. My name is Ronald Alan H. Mutalid, your hosting professor. And you're watching On the Sunny Side Season 5! Akalain mo yun?
Girl, Aubrey Raven Lucica, together with our guest host for today.
And I am Carl Adam Soria.
And welcome to On the Sunny Side Season 5. Good morning, Sir Carl.
Good morning, Bray. Kamusta man ka?
I am feeling good, sir. Kaya
Feeling
nakatulog
good?
na kong tarong for 2 consecutive days.
Oh, very good.
Yes,
And kani
sir.
siya is all about katong sa ato ang sa ato ang U-Days nga nahitabo, right?
Yes, sir.
So, yun.
Grabe nga preparation, sir, ang nahitabo, sir. Grabe sab ang pagbilar.
Okay.
Grabe sab ka-exhausted ang lawas, sir. But thank God na humanag yun.
Very good. It's good to
Yes.
know nga naka-relax ra jud.
Naka-relax ra good, sir. O si ganap nimo atong U-Days, sir.
Ako is basic ko sa pag-monitor kay bali sa operation sa mga SSG tungod kay SSG advisor ko. And at the same time, busy po sa ganap sa mga guidance counselors kay bali sa U-Days.
Ay, okay. So, after U-Days, sir, karon na week, naputay gi-celebrate na lain, sir.
Yes, we are celebrating our mental health week, no?
Yes.
And then ang goal aning atong mental health week is in line kibali sa atong theme, which is intended kibali sa pag-focus kibali sa mental health, pag-prioritize sa mental health
Yes.
sa workplace, which is very important, no? Okay.
So, kuan, sir, akong question sa imo ha, sir. Kumusta man ang imong mental health?
So far, okay raman, striving.
Okay raman.
Surviving.
Surviving.
How about you? Kamusta man?
Coping up, sir, sa kanang kakapoy lagi, sir, in ana. So, karon murag maingon ako, sir, nga kanang okay na ako mental health karon, sir. Kay layo pa mo po ng exam. So, okay ako mental health, pero pag abot sa exam, sir, kay murag ana siya, sir.
Okay, after ani, semis na po dayon, right?
Yes, sir. Pag ani kay samay na po dayon, sir.
Okay.
Kanang as a guidance counselor, sir, no. Pwede ko mag-ask sa imo ha if unsa di ay about ang kanang para mabalan pud sa atong mga students karon, sir. Unsa di ay about ang kanang mental health. Nganong importante man nga makabalot ako kumusta ang atong mental health.
Mental health is very important because part siya sa dimension sa ato ang being, no. So in fact, it is an integral part of our being. So part kibali siya sa dapat natong i-consider sa atong day-to-day nga pakiglambigit nato sa ato mga day-to-day nga mga obligations, right? So yun, so dili dapat nato na siya i-take for granted ang mental health. Yes, very essential. And this is intended for not just for the employee since nga ang theme is naka-focus dito sa workplace but also sa mga students, sa atong mga pinalangga nga mga students. Pinalangga.
Pinalanggang students. So, before ta mo proceed, sir, mag-shoutout sa ta sa atong mga viewers karon. So, hi, good morning, Ma'am Ara. Ni Ana siya. Good morning, Sunnyside. And good morning,
Ma'am
sa
Ara.
Ma'am Ara from Sunnyside. And also to Sir Eltimar, maayong buntag, sir. Alright.
Hello,
Hi,
Loki.
sir.
Maayong buntag. Og shout out po ay since nga nag-mention man kog pinalangga sa akong langga po ay nga nagtan-aw po karon
Ala,
sa CS.
alkansi man taani,
So, yun.
oy.
Wala.
Ay, hi po. Alkansi kaayo kay naamong gay label.
Okay. Mato itong istoryahan ganina nga
yes,
importante
wala siya.
jud kaayo ang description. Same pod sa atong topic karon sa mental health nga very important jud kaayo nga makabalot ta sa description about depression and anxiety. It is very essential to know the distinction between the two. Yeah.
Okay. So, because na-open up naman ni nato, sir, no, na topic, sir, we invited guests, sir, para pod ma-explain sa ato og tarong and para sa mga viewers pod nato karon, sir, to understand further what is anxiety and depression all about. Kay naabay
Yes.
uban, sir, nga kanang pag naalang sila ma-feel ani, may din sila nga na ko'y depression.
Correct,
Naalang ko'y ma-feel
correct.
ani, i-self-diagnose na din nila lang self nga, ay nako'y anxiety. Pero not to invalidate the feelings sa kanang gibate sa person, pero it's really nice to know, sir, kung unsa de ay ning anxiety and depression all about. Para
Yes.
dili ra pud ta ka na galing mura ra pud ta ka ng, ay, nabati ni nako, depressed nako. Dili siya inana kay napay murag deep nga mga meaning about ani and
Yes.
para mas makabalo ta ani, sir.
Yes, and it's very important to know the differences and the considerations dapat nga atong tanaawon while we are kanabitang being aware of kaning mga description kibali about depression and anxiety. Okay? So ato nang sugdan og introduce ang ato ang guest speaker. Ang
Sige,
atong
sir.
bigatin nga guest speaker for this morning session. So our speaker is going to talk about understanding anxiety and depression. And it is my distinct honor to introduce today's esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Bernardo L. Conde, a distinguished physician with over 4 decades of experience in the fields of neurology, psychiatry, and physiology. Dr. Conde completed his Doctor of Medicine degree from the University of Santo Tomas in 1974, having already earned a magna cum laude distinction for his Bachelor of Science in Pre-Medicine from Far Eastern University. His dedication to furthering his knowledge is evident in his postgraduate fellowship at Kyushu University in Japan, specializing in neuropsychopharmacology with a focus on addiction medicine. Throughout his illustrious career, Dr. Conde has held several key positions, including serving as a vice chair and chairman at Jose R. Reyes Memorial Medical Center and a long-standing faculty member at UST. He has been a fellow of the Philippine Neurological Association, the Philippine Psychiatric Association, and various other prestigious organizations. His leadership and expertise have extended to his work as the Chief Coordinator for the Hospital's Training and Research Office, with numerous accolades and awards, including being emeritus in medicine and speaker at several major conventions. Dr. Conde's contribution to mental health and neurology is undeniable. So, please join me in welcoming Dr. Bernardo L. Conde. Hello, Doc. Mayong
Hello,
buntag.
Doc.
Good morning po.
Morning.
Good morning po.
It's good to be here.
I see. Very good to know po.
Yeah,
Very good to
it's
know.
I feel kind of unfamiliar and familiar at the same time
Yes po.
because once I was a student for 1 year at Father Oyos College then
Oh,
in
yes po.
1965.
Oh, I see po.
see.
Ano
So,
po yung course niyo, Doc?
At that time I came from the US, coming from a scholarship from high school, and
Yes,
then coming back to the Philippines. Father George Hagenberg then was a friend of the family, went to our house and said, "This little man is not doing anything. Bring him to Father Orius and enroll him." So I got here at Father Orius for 1 year.
I see.
I could remember vividly the face of Father George Hagenberg and Father Alfonso
Yes, po.
and Father Anthony Van Santbord,
Oh, I see po.
because Father Anthony was my idol.
so you had great time po in staying
I had
here.
the best years of my life was with Father Orius at that time, 1965.
It was a very long time ago.
Yeah,
Because
that's
Father
a long
George,
time ago.
Father Anthony Van Santbord, my favorite subject then was Evidence 1 and Evidence 2.
So what, ano po yung subject na yan about po, Doc?
It's about philosophy and theology.
Oh, I see.
And I could fairly remember up until now, as you get into my age, my best memories will be reminiscing my days with Father Orius
I see.
as an acolyte here. And I could remember the definition of love by Father Anthony Van Santford. Still is true today. And he defined love as the willingness of the will to do whatever is needed to make the loved one happy.
Willingness of the will.
Willingness
To
of
do
the
whatever is
will.
needed to make the loved one happy.
I see.
To me, that is most encompassing. That is what Father Anthony Van Santford taught me.
I see. Oh, Aubrey, you remember that, ha?
Yes.
Willingness of the will.
Willingness of the will. Everyone, to our viewers, if you have any questions regarding about anxiety and depression, you can comment down below so that Dr. Conde can answer your questions. This is once in a lifetime na opportunity to ask a psychiatrist on live. So you guys can comment down below para basahon na muna later and i-ask na to kan Dr. Conde para isa-isahon na to na siya para makabalot ta kung unsa di ay na siya all about. So, Doc,
Yes.
our question is, Miss Universe, our question is, can you elaborate? Mura wag na sa koan. Do you have any presentation po about sa
Yeah, I prepared a
anxiety?
set of slides.
Okay
There's
po.
quite plenty. But let me just point out this way. In a capsule form, my slides would be in terms of anxiety and what are the different forms of the disorders related to anxiety and how one goes into a state of depression coming from anxiety.
Yes,
And
po.
to capsulize it, it basically, the simplest way would be, in one spectrum, one end is anxiety, and the other end is depression. If you have so much anxiety in you, okay, and you cannot cope with that particular stress that caused anxiety, then you go into a state of depression.
Yes,
So that in one spectrum, this is anxiety. You need to resolve whatever conflicts you have, whatever stresses that you are experiencing at the moment. Because if you cannot cope with that, you go into a state of depression.
Yes, po.
For example, why am I feeling so panicky all the time? Why am I panicky all the time? If you can't get the right answers, then you go into a state of depression. You go into a state of depression that you cannot basically control whatever it is that you would like to do. You end up hibernating, you end up not locking yourself in the room, you end up isolating yourself. And there are many forms of anxiety disorders. Many, many forms.
Yes,
The
po.
most common is generalized anxiety disorder. It's a pervasive feeling of anxiety all throughout the day. Whereas panic disorders they come and go, panic and come and go. But OCD is different. Obsessive compulsive is different. You just can't, the obsession and the compulsion. Obsession is the pervasive thoughts. The compulsion, these repetitive actions to basically satisfy the thoughts. That becomes a disorder if you cannot control everything.
So, Doc, you made mention about anxiety that stems from the different problems that we have.
Yes.
no? But does anxiety has a biological and hereditary basis?
Well, that's true. Basically, if you look at any form of mental illness, it is not anymore in terms of, ay, may problema siya.
Yes,
na. Okay, it's the source is the environment. No. It's the biopsychosocial model of how we look at different mental health disorders. So biologically, he is predisposed. Psychologically, he is also predisposed. Environmentally and socially, he is also predisposed. All taken into consideration. Because it is said that two things. One is heredity, the other one is the environment. Heredity gives us the potentials of what we could become.
Yes, po.
But environment sets the stage with which how the potentials will develop.
Yes,
Okay?
po.
You may have parents who are basically, for example, okay, you have parents who are basically one parent is schizophrenic, the other one is not. Then they have two kids. One was adopted off, or both of them were adopted off. One was adopted to a very, very positively nurturing family. That vulnerability, because of the genes, may not be expressed at all. Because it is the nurturance of the environment with where that particular kid or where that particular child grew up with.
I see po.
So, malaki talaga yung impact ng environment.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. If you look at it, for example, to veer from the topic for a while, let me talk about addiction, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Drug addiction. Two persons. Why does one become addicted to drugs? Why is one just just tries drugs and he doesn't get addicted to drugs.
Yes po.
Very interesting.
I see.
Because one gets addicted because there is that vulnerability to be significantly disturbed sa kanyang brain. Whereas the other one, he has good personality structure, he doesn't get addicted. So
But-
there's that vulnerability.
But once that person po yung galing sa very nice na environment, exposed to an environment that is sa addiction na part po, may possibility po na magiget nyo yung...
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. You can say that a person, okay, there is a child that grew up with the family, well cared for by the family, okay? Then all of a sudden goes into bad company. Then it develops the traits and attitudes and the attributes of that particular bad company. And then the parents would say, what happened to my son? It's the environment.
Yes po. Doc, you mentioned about the impact of good nurturance,
Yes.
good environment,
Yes.
despite of the hereditary basis. No?
Yes, yes.
Is good environment, aside from promoting and providing safe spaces for children, is also yung ano Doc ba, yung pag-expose din sa bata ng mga hard situations, would it also has a positive impact on building resilience that could also combat anxiety?
Oh, that's true. Okay. Let me put it this way.
Yes, po.
Okay. Everything and every mental health disorder, almost always, we go back to the basic structure, the family.
Yes po.
Because as a child, the child will not do anything. The child is helpless. The newborn is helpless. The neonate up to 2 years old is helpless. So his first environment would be the mother. The mother is the most important person in the world. Because if the mother nurtures the child, the neonate, very well during the infantile stage, the child grows up to develop basic trust within himself. He trusts that he will survive in this world.
Yes po.
So it is within the family, how he grew up. Because one's personality, the child's personality, will be totally honed in by how the child was raised by both parents, the family as well. So everything stems from the family.
The family. Yes po.
Pero po, what if po yung child po is parang, yung parents niya parang pinupush siya to the limit, to her limits, then may possibility po ba na instead of being resilience, yung parang nag-grow siya into a resilient one, madedevelop yung pagkakaroon niya ng too much dependence sa self niya, so parang in the long run magkakaroon siya ng anxiety and madedevelop yung
Yeah, because the child being pushed too much will always strive to really satisfy the parents. But there's a
yes po.
breaking point. How much more can he take? So that one point, okay, he has to really do something. Then at one point that he breaks down, he hates his parents.
Yes
But
po.
the Bible tells us that you should not hate your parents, you love your parents. So it is not I don't hate my parents, I love my parents. And that is reaction formation.
Yes po.
But because the parents, the attitudes and the behavior of the parents are just about the same, over time, the child will have a different type of mental mechanism. It is not I who hate my parents, they hate me. That is now projection. Going into state of paranoid personality.
Yes po.
I see.
That's why there's also an issue on the intention of forcing your children.
Definitely.
Like, what's the intention of forcing your children or encouraging your child to grow
Yeah.
or to combat the struggles in life? No, it really has a bearing on it also.
Yeah. All the parents must do is just let the child grow to his potentials, but monitor, but not
yes
to
po.
push the child. No. Because if that happens, there's always a breaking point in the child. How much more can the brain take? How much more can the child take in terms of, pressure?
That's why some of these children also possesses this what we call as people-pleasing tendencies.
Yeah, of
It
course.
stems from the parents' way of nurturing their child, especially doon sa pag-push ng child. No? Tapos yung intention is doon sa parents na dapat mo grow yung child nila. But then that child is expecting to be rewarded sa parents.
Sa parents,
Yeah.
yeah. Doc, your presentation po is ready po.
Oh, sure, okay. Let's go on to the slides. Oh, this is the picture of a person in severe stress and anxiety. Okay, so this is the first slide. Anticipatory anxiety. These are the pathomechanisms and how we manage them. Slide, please. Next. So, normality, every one of us has our own anxiety. It is universal. It's a diffuse, unpleasant, and vague sense of apprehension, often accompanied by autonomic symptoms, which are, basically, the most common symptoms are headache, perspiration, palpitations, chest tightness, stomach discomfort, and restlessness. Most often, people will complain of, palpitations and chest tightness. So if you are, let's say, for example, a 45-year-old going into a lot of anxiety because of stress in your work, you develop some degree of chest tightness, you should really be aware, because somehow you might feel that, am I suffering from heart ailment? And you go to the physician, and the physician says, no, you're okay. But the stress is there. He has to combat his stress. Next slide. So, among the most prevalent of psychiatric conditions are anxiety disorders. So we follow the biopsychosocial model. Okay, it's no longer purely psychological, nor is it social, but it is a compendium of both biological, psychological, social. Because we are born with a certain number of neurons in the brain. Our brain must grow. Our brain must develop. So let me just diverse for a while. Okay, there are two things about how the person goes into a mature person. First, the first trimester of pregnancy is basically organogenesis. That's the first trimester. Your brain is formed, your stomach is formed, every organ is formed. But the second trimester is where development comes in. Growth is an increase in cell size and number. You have one cell being fertilized by the sperm, and you grow into multiple cells. You become a multicellular organism. But together with that, as you grow bigger and you grow more systems, you have to develop also. So what can a single cell or two cell structure do compared to a multicellular structure? That is development. Development is the increase in the complexity of function as one grows. For example, if I were a medical student, what can I do as a first-year medical student? But I'm supposed to develop into a fourth-year medical student that I should know more. Because I should develop, okay? But then again, this growth and development, two things, both of them are time-locked. Both are time-locked. You should be able to grow and develop at a certain point in your life. For example, at 2 months of age, the child, 2 or 3 months of age, the child must be able to say, mama, mama. The child must be able to smile on social contact. At 7 months of age, the child must be able to sit without support. At 1 year of age, he should be able to walk without support. At 4 years of age, he should be able to walk up and down the stairs. But this is just motor development. What about cognitive development? What about emotional development? All of those things, social cognitive development, they have to develop. So everything that we do here has a biological basis, because as we grow and grow and grow, we also have to develop, and we should mature. Now, next, development entails some degree of connections between parts of the brain. Okay, you have the frontal lobe, you have the temporal lobe, you have all other lobes. If you compare man's head compared to a monkey, the monkey is flat. Man has large frontal bosses. Why? Because that is the frontal lobe, the part of the brain that is important for cognition, for abstraction, for procrastination, for deferment, for executive functioning. But that thinking process must also connect with one's behavior, which is in the temporal lobe. And that thinking and the behavior should also be connected to the emotions, which is the limbic lobe. So, all of these three systems must be wired and connected in a very systematic and congruent manner. Okay, so So basically, man's existence is pillared on three things: thinking, behavior, and emotions. But it's not just thinking, behavior, and emotions. One has to think before one has to act. Before one has to act based on emotions. That is a normal person. But if a person acts before he thinks, that is an impulsive person. Which of these two do you think would have more mental health disorders? The one who thinks first and acts, or the one who acts before he thinks? See? There lies the difference. So that if you have normal behavior and emotional thinking, your cognitive process is above one's behavior and one's emotions. But nowadays, women marry because they love someone without thinking, would this guy be my right choice for a longer period of time? They decide based on the emotions. At the end of 5 years, separate. That is sad.
So like, Doc, women tend to act based on their emotions more than
I'm not trying to make generalizations.
Ay, okay po.
I don't want to make generalizations because some women can be cognitively well prepared to carry on the life of a married person. But some basically, young teenagers now, they just living together. After several years, they break up. See, that is how I go to the barangays ever since I've been here. In fact, today after this, I have to go to the different barangays, and I see 17 years old, 13 years old living together. And that is sad.
a sad reality indeed.
So next slide, please. So again, okay. So this is what I said earlier. Okay, next. See, 50% is genes, 50% environment. Next. So fear is an alerting signal. It is a response to a known external, definitive, or non-conflictual threat. Anxiety is the alerting signal. It warns of impending danger, enables the person to take measures to deal with the threat. Anxiety means there is a response to a threat that is unknown, whereas fear is there is a known external threat. You fear someone because someone is there almost at your eyesight. That is external threat. Okay, but anxiety, you don't know where the fear is coming from. You just can't tell. You just, as a physician, I would say, what is it that bothers you? Doc, I really don't know. It's just feeling here inside me that I can't seem to explain everything. So you dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. But then the most important part is, okay, there are only 3 areas or 4 areas that you have to consider in terms of looking at your stress. 1, your work, if you are working. 2, your friends. 3, your family. And 4, your occupation, or your partner, if you're married. Which of these 4 areas do you find most stressful? Because if you can do that, we can at least, iron out, stress out, or make solutions for those particular areas where you find more stress. If it is work, then they can make plans for the work. If it is friends, oh no, something else. Then we can ask, do you have many friends? Are you a loner? Do you think that people look at you in a very different way, that you're such an extrovert, arrogant? Something like that. But in young individuals in high school, social media, Facebook, that is very stressful to them. Especially if they're now blocked out of the Facebook, their group chat. That's different. Slide, please. Next. So this is anxiety and fear, okay? See, anxiety can't seem to know. Fear is definitely, there's something, there's external threat. Next slide. Okay. So, much of anxiety is due to stressful stimuli. Some anxiety may be spontaneous, as in generalized anxiety disorder. It just comes, okay? And stress may threaten the ego. Okay, this is basically the psychological the pyramid. One is the id, it's the instinctual drives. The superego is your conscience. The ego is what you are, basically. Sometimes you have that urge to do things, but your conscience tells you, don't do it. Okay. Now, where did this start come? Where did this come from? Okay. As a child, you would like to do this, do this. Then you grow and grow and grow and grow. You still want to do it. Why? Because you want to derive pleasure. But your conscience, as you grow older and older, you want to have that particular instinctual drive, but your conscience tells you, you can't do it now, do it later. Okay. So there are two principles here that are working. One is pleasure, the other one is reality principle. Okay. As a child, okay, you can't talk. You cannot talk. So what do? You cry. So when you cry, your mama, who is so trusting and who is so caring for you, would go to you. And then what would she do? Feel for the diaper. If it is wet, the child must have urinated or made poo-poo. If it is dry, the child is hungry. So either one, the mother has to make that particular solution to the problem or the one that made the child stressful, crying. So if the child is totally, relieved of that particular stressful situation, he feels relieved, he feels comfortable. But that basically is because of pleasure principle. The child wants to be given pleasure at once. Okay? You grow and grow and grow. At the age of 3, at the age of 4, at the age of 5, the child would still want this much. But the parent must be able to show the child, you can't have it now, we can have it later. That is the reality principle. That pleasure comes later. The reality principle is your conscience. Children should be taught that definitely they cannot have pleasure all the time. But what do we see? As the child grows and grows, and the mother is so over-solicitous, okay? Whenever the teenager wants something, okay, the mother gives in at once, okay? If the mother cannot give to that particular teenager, what would the teenager do? She will sulk. She will leave the house. Because the child, that particular teenager, is still in the pleasure principle. She has not totally achieved the realization that somehow pleasure principle must be predicated on the reality that you can have that pleasure later in life.
That's why delayed gratification is very important.
Yes. Yes. See? So, how does one get conscience? Now, where does one get the conscience? From the family. How he is trained. So, because the first social community that the child will ever experience will be the family. As he grows older, he goes to school. Now it's the community, society. See? That is where conscience takes place. Following rules.
Yes.
Rules are to be followed, and rules and rules and rules. That is why there's such a disorder personality. This is your personality now. That is why there's a personality disorder which we call antisocial. They cannot follow rules. They want pleasure all the time. They cannot delay gratification. And how do we define an antisocial person? One who is sick of society and who makes society sick. What is the treatment? Bring him back to the womb of the mother.
Doc,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, ha? I think one of the reasons why we have rules is so that we have this understanding that it's not only about us,
Yes,
or it's not only about you.
yes.
Okay.
We live in a world.
Yes, Doc.
This is a song. No man stands alone.
Yes, po.
So these are the symptoms of anxiety. Okay. So again, it's thinking, perception, learning, confusion, poor concentration, poor memory, and selective attention. Okay. But there's awareness of physiological sensations, like for example, you have, crampy stomach, you have palpitations, dizziness, diarrhea, and then there's that particular feeling of being nervous or frightened all the time. Have you ever felt that way? If you haven't felt that way, you're abnormal. No one can be without any form of anxiety.
Yes, po. Yes.
How you cope with that anxiety is how your personality has been made. Because it is going into the different mental mechanisms that you are supposed to be given, how you deal with your own stresses.
Yes, po.
And this is what we will see later on. Okay, next slide. Okay. Sigmund Freud said it is a dammed up libido, non-release of sexual tension. But then the most important part is there's a weak defense mechanism. Okay, slide please. So there are other causes of theory. The other theories would be behavioral, which is the learning theory, and the existentialist theory. But the more applicable would be the existentialist theory, because to them existence means bleak. Okay, existence is basically they're lost in that particular own world. So I would consider that particular person as existentially alienated individual. Okay, what can we do for that particular individual? Okay, you have to bring him back into what is supposed to be. You're supposed to be in that particular environment. You deal with that environment. You don't expect the environment to change for you. You need to change because the environment changes. It's a dynamic environment. You need to change. But if you can change, then you become existentially alienated. Okay? The other person would be environmentally alienated. His environment is totally made up of, narcissistic and neurotic parents. He will end up with a neurosis as well. That's environmentally handicapped individual. Okay, next slide. So, this is the biological consideration for anxiety. Okay, basically we just consider two neurotransmitters, norepinephrine, and the other one is serotonin. Next slide. All of these neurotransmitter systems would definitely link up with the brain, causing our behavior, causing our thinking process, causing our emotions. Because our brain is just like a computer. They are wired. One cell is wired to another cell. But the wiring between the two cells is made up of a chemical substance, which is a neurotransmitter. Say, if you have two neurotransmitters in one cell, that two neurotransmitters will have to transmit to two cells with the same neurotransmitter system. If there's too much of that, you become more manic. If there's too low, you become depressed. So there has to be a balance of the different neurotransmitter systems in the brain that regulate our thinking, our behavior, and emotions. So everything is basically with a biological basis. No matter what. Okay, so may problema ka. Okay, may problema ka. What happens kung may problema ka? Your brain becomes a little bit, significantly troubled. When the brain is troubled, the cells are troubled. When the cells are troubled, what happens? There's so much reactive oxygen species, the oxidants, the reactive oxygen species that destroys most parts of the brain. Over time, your brain will definitely go into states of depression. We'll show that later on. Next slide. And this is serotonin again. That's why they said, a banana a day keeps the psychiatrist away. Because serotonin, bananas contain a lot of serotonin, which is good.
So iba din yung an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Well, that's true. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. But which doctor? Basically, serotonin is good. Next slide. So these are the different parts of there's different receptors for the serotonin. Okay, next slide. So this would be the nosology for the different anxiety disorders. Panic disorder without agoraphobia. Agoraphobia without history of panic disorder. Specific phobias, social phobias, OCD, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, in this particular instance, I would point out PTSD because this was coined by the Americans coming from the wars that they've been into, particularly the Vietnam War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War. Okay, now, if you look at PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, the Laos, the Khmer Rouge Republic before, the killing fields, okay, and Cambodia's, okay, my psychiatrist friend would say, I don't believe in PTSD because every day we are under stress. See? So how can it be post-traumatic stress disorder when every day we're under stress? We're under stress. But now they are beginning to lean more towards, this particular syndrome may also be practically practicable for us also. Because PTSD is very, very difficult. Very difficult. But there's treatment and there's cure. Okay. Of the different disorders, there's some treatment. Some may not have some cure. Okay, next slide. So these are the different nosologies. I just wanted to show DSM-4 TR. I mean, this is the older version, Diagnostic Statistical Manual. But the DSM is basically diagnostic nosology only for psychiatric illnesses. But ICD-10, now we have ICD-11, okay? ICD-10, ICD-11 is diagnostic nosology from the WHO. It covers all diseases, and mental health disorders belong to a category F. Okay, so of the different illnesses of man, ICD-10 is basically more encompassing. DSM is for psychiatric conditions only.
Yes po.
Okay, next slide. So, this is panic disorder. Usually, women are seen more with panic attacks. But nowadays, more men have panic symptoms. Next slide. Okay, so these are the panic attacks. A discrete period of intense fear or discomfort in which 4 or more of the following symptoms develop abruptly and reach a peak within 10 minutes. That's too fast, huh? Palpitation, sweating, trembling, sensation of shortness of breath, feeling of choking. There's so many, multiple, plethora of symptoms. And when this happens, the person who is driving will just stop in the middle of the street and go into panic. Okay, next slide. So these are the differential diagnosis of panic disorder. Any patient who comes to me for panic attacks, okay, I usually do the complete physical and medical exam because these are the medical conditions that can give rise to panic attacks. Cardiovascular, pulmonary, neurological, endocrine, drug intoxication, and drug withdrawal. But the mental disorders that are basically what we call differential diagnosis, these are persons who may be malingering, factitious disorder, hypochondriacs, social and specific phobias, or even schizophrenia. Even persons with schizophrenia can complain of panic attacks. Next slide. So this is phobias. Irrational fear. Fear of being alone in public places, particularly when rapid exit would be difficult. This is agoraphobia. You have so many different forms of phobias. Personally, I must admit, I have fear of heights.
Oh, you're acrophobic po, no?
Yes.
Yes po.
I mean, whenever I stay in a hotel and they put me in the 19th floor, goodness, I don't want to look down the window. No, never, never.
Yes po.
But they ask me, how can you ride the plane? Well, the plane is closed. I don't see the cloud. I mean, I always keep the windows down.
Yes po.
I have acrophobia.
I see.
So honestly. Next slide. So these are the diagnostic criteria for agoraphobia. Quite a lot of them. Next. Okay. Panic disorder with agoraphobia would be different. Okay. Next slide. Panic disorder without agoraphobia is also different. Why is this important? Why is there, why must there be distinction? I think one, it's for scientific, for research purposes. The other one for treatment purposes. Because if it is panic disorder without agoraphobia, that's easier to treat. But if it is panic disorder with agoraphobia, that's more difficult to treat. Okay? Okay. Next slide. Okay. Next slide. These are just diagnostic criteria. Okay. Then you can have criteria for specific phobias. You have women who fear cockroaches, people who fear snakes. Indiana Jones was fearful of snakes. The movie Indiana Jones,
Yes po.
he was afraid of snakes. Okay, some people may be afraid of, cats. These are specific phobias. Next slide. This is social phobia. I think there's so many people now with social phobias. They tend to withdraw from people. They cannot be in a group of people. Okay? It starts in children. It starts in childhood. Okay. It's a marked and persistent fear of one or more social or performance situations in which the person is exposed to unfamiliar people or to possible scrutiny by others. This individual feels that he or she will act in a way or show anxiety symptoms that will be humiliating or embarrassing. Okay? Wala pa siya doon sa isang situation, wala pa sa isang event, ayaw na niya kasi natatakot na siya kung mapahiya siya. So she withdraws. So he or she withdraws. What would he become? He would become a loner, an introvert. So how are you going to remove that particular phobia from that particular individual to make him more or less comfortable with his life? He cannot be isolated. Will there be a medicine for that? You think that pharmacotherapy would help that particular individual? I doubt very much. There are two methods of treatment. One is pharmacotherapy, the other one is psychotherapy. Okay? So of this particular situation, the best would be a combination with two. But which would be more? I think psychotherapy would be more than pharmacotherapy. Because medicines will not run his life. It will only make his life a little better. But he will have to run his life. So psychotherapy helps him to build up that particular mechanisms that he can have to control his own stresses, his own phobias.
Yes po.
Next slide. Okay, these are the criteria for the other diagnostic criteria for social phobia. Next slide. Now, this is important because a lot of people are like this. Well, don't call her obsessive compulsive disorder.
We were talking about it kanina po. Yes po.
It is good to have obsessive compulsive traits. All of us have obsessive compulsive traits. We can be obsessive compulsive, but it is a trait. Okay, it is a pattern, but it's a particular pattern within us. But it becomes a disorder when it can interrupt with your daily functioning. You become totally incapacitated because of that particular obsessive compulsive nature mo eh.
I see.
Okay?
Yes po.
Okay. These are recurrent obsessions and compulsions sufficiently severe to cause marked distress to the person. That's why it is called a disorder. Okay. So obsessions and compulsions are time-consuming. Obsessions and compulsions interfere significantly with the person's normal routine, occupational functioning, usual social activities, or relationships. Example, if I were to be obsessive compulsive, okay, I go to bed. Okay. As I close my eyes, I forgot to close the window. I forgot to lock the door. So I get up, only to find out I already locked it before. Then goes back to sleep again. Then they will do it again because there is that obsession that I may have missed something. The compulsion to do it repeatedly over and over again. In the end, he will have to hate himself. Why am I like this?
Yes po.
Why am I like this? So there is a comorbid condition. That's why I said anxiety or whatever anxiety that causes the disorder is just one spectrum of the specific disorder, which is depression.
Yes po.
Eventually, the person with obsessive compulsive disorder will develop depression. Hindi niya mapigilan ang sarili niya eh. Andun sa sarili niya eh. Is there something wrong with his brain? With her brain? There is something wrong with her brain. Studies would show that there is some significant there's not disconnection, but there's some degree of misconnection between one part of the brain, which is thinking, and the part of the brain which is important for movement, locomotion, behavior.
Yes po.
Next slide. So these are the etiology of OCD. The biological factors again, serotonin. That's why Madonna said, keeps the psychiatrist away.
Yes po.
That these are the personality factors, obsessive compulsive personality trait, obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And the psychodynamic factors will be fixation in Freud's anal phase of personality development. And anal retentiveness is so strict. See? That's why my former professor would say, the most intelligent muscle of the person is the anal muscles. Why? Because kahit na pupong-pupo ka na, you can still retain that. Which is true.
Dok, meron po ba siyang effect sa anal training ng mga bata?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Bowel training.
Bowel training is important at the age of 3 or 4.
Okay po.
Next slide. These are the symptom patterns in OCD, contamination, fear of being contaminated, and then pathological doubt. Did I do it again? I forgot something. Then, of course, intrusive thoughts, which is the third most common. Intrusive obsessional thoughts without compunction. Repetitious thoughts of a sexual or aggressive act that is reprehensible to the patient. And symmetry, which is the most common, the fourth most common, and the need for precision. Compulsion for slowness. I'm sure you've seen classmates of yours or friends of yours whose hair cannot is talagang planchadong
Straight na
planchadong hair.
straight.
Straight hair talaga. At saka yung kilay talagang wala talagang lalabas na hair dito. Talagang gagawin ng gagawin. He's so compelled to really be, I don't know, it's different.
They're so compelled of with putting everything into order.
Yes, the rigidness. Rigidity is the most important term that I can describe for a person with OCD. So rigid. But would I like to have a person, an employee who is obsessive compulsive trait? I would like that.
Workaholic.
Workaholic siya eh. He will never stop until it is done.
Yes po.
But the problem is, if he cannot do it and he's cannot do it in time, magagalit siya eh. He hates himself for not being able to do that at particular time. Then he becomes depressed.
Yes po.
So that's why whenever I see my employees like that, take your time. Take your time coffee.
Yes po. And it will also have an effect on how that person socializes with his or her
Definitely.
colleagues.
Yes. That's why in the center where I am supposed to be the medical center chief, I have about 52 employees, different personalities. But I have one who is so obsessive compulsive talaga. Mahusay talaga siya. I would hate to see her go talaga kasi he's so good. Next slide. Okay, next. Okay, next. Let's go on with this. Okay, let's go on. Okay. Okay. This is PTSD, all right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. The best description would be the person experienced, witnessed, or was confronted with an event or events that involved actual or threatened death or serious injury, or a threat to the physical integrity of self or others. Okay. The traumatic event is persistently re-experienced in one or more of the following ways: recurrent and intrusive distressing recollections of the event, including images, thoughts, or perceptions. Recurring distressing dreams of the event. See, women who had been raped would have that particular, disorder. That particular disorder. Next. Acting or feeling as if the traumatic event was recurring includes a sense of reliving the experience. Okay. Actually, they feel that it's now being brought into the focus again. Okay. So, there's persistent avoidance of stimuli associated with the trauma and numbing of general responsiveness. Next slide. And these are the things seen in people with PTSD. There are efforts to avoid thoughts, efforts to avoid activities, inability to recall an important aspect of the trauma, markedly diminished interest to participate in significant activities. So many things.
See, yes po.
PTSD.
Doc, I have a question. And correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, ha?
Yeah.
Because there are, I think, 3 ways on how to manage stressors, no?
Yeah.
We have this what we call as fight, flight, and freeze. Yung PTSD ba, Doc, example ba doon yung freeze? Hindi
Na.
po.
No.
Okay po.
Okay. I have a different, I may agree with you to some extent, but if I were to be, there are only 3 possible ways by which you can manage your stress. One is fight. Okay? Some people can basically be active, They are so aggressive. They fight the stress, okay? But this is now in terms of mechanisms that will help them to really cope with the stress. Like, for example, what is one way of being aggressive? Acting out is one. Okay. Okay. The other one is flee. You sleep it off.
Yes po.
How do you do that? You want to sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep. Alcohol. But the moment you wake up, stress is still there. the most important part, the most logical would be make a compromise. Look for the win-win situation.
Yes po.
Okay, it's not freezing. You're just compromising.
Mm.
Okay. Next slide. The most important comorbid condition for depression of the different disorders that I've mentioned would be panic attacks with agoraphobia. Then you have social phobia. Then you have PTSD. Then you have OCD. These are the 4 basic anxiety disorders, okay, which are significantly correlated with a high degree of depressive illness, depression.
I see po.
Next slide. Next. Okay, next. This is acute stress disorder. At a certain point, you become so stressed because of that particular situation. For example, you're doing something and then suddenly your boss tells you, I need this at once today. Or you are in that acute stress disorder.
Yes po.
So what do you do? Ma'am, ikaw, what do you do when you're given when you're in that particular situation? What do you do?
I honestly don't know po. Hindi pa kasi ako na-expose sa ganyan po kasi student pa. Pero I don't really know what to do po if nandyan na sa situation na yan.
Well, let me explain my experience with this. Okay, every day in UST, okay, I have about 10 or 15 patients, and I'm happy with that because I cannot do more. So that's why when I hear some of my former students in the provinces, I see 80 patients a day. Whoa, that's a lot. But being a psychiatrist, I need to talk to the patient. I have to say, as I enter the office, my secretary would say, Doc, you have 10 patients. Okay. Will there be more? Siguro, Doc, meron pang 5. Okay. Limit to 15. Huh? That's all I can do. Okay. First 3 patients, call them in. Okay. Psychiatric. At the end of the 4th patient, I get out.
Yes po.
Because I've reached my, plateau.
Okay po.
I'm overwhelmed with so much thoughts, particular. I had to interpret the particular patient's behavior and talking to them. Okay, so at the 4th patient, I get out. Then my patients outside will wait. Dok, saan ka naman pupunta? Magtatagal ka na. No, I just need a break. Mag-coffee lang ako sandali. Then I go down to the ground floor, take some coffee. That's my relief.
Yes po.
But here comes again, because I'm into acute stress disorder, I have to maintain my sanity.
Yes po.
Yes.
Okay, here comes another fellow doctor. Oh, nag-iisa ka. Oh, malungkot ka ba? Hindi ka, malungkot ka ba? No, I'm not happy. I'm just having coffee. Okay, pwede ba ako makipag-coffee? Sige, bayaran mo. Sige, okay. Then here comes another one. I was trying to relieve my stress, and then here come other doctors would say, oh, may problema ako dito. I have to listen to the problem again.
During your break, Doc?
During my break, give me a break. Or the fourth doctor would come and say, my God, I hate that place. But, bakit? Ano naman nangyari sa'yo? Kasi ayaw ko na gawin pa niya. Anong solusyon doon? My response, patingnan mo sa doktor.
Yes po.
Nakaka-small doctor na nga ako eh. Kung hindi nahihirapan ka, transfer to another doctor because
yes
that
po.
is the most important part of being doctor-patient relationship.
Yes po.
Kung hindi maganda relationship mo, meron kang counter-transference, negative transference, bilipat mo sa ibang doktor.
Refer po. Yes po.
Oo. Pero huwag ka rin magkaroon ng positive transference.
Yes po.
Kaya yung pasyente mo maganda, huwag ka pa ba? Magkaroon ng positive transference. That's not true because you're not getting to be objective anymore.
Yes po.
Your emotions can come into the picture.
Yes po. Pero grabe po yung 15, Doc, no? Ang dami po. 15 a day po, no?
15.
Yes po. Grabe.
Doc,
Hindi
next
magdami.
time mag-bring ka na ng paper na, I need a break. Para di sila.
Hindi. Usually when I go down and I go to the coffee, that's the time that they know that I'm having a break.
Yes po. But how do you manage, Doc, after these 15 patients, yung self-care niyo po, how do you manage given na 15 yung patients na kinikater niyo po every day?
Hindi naman everyday yung 15.
Yes po.
8 or 10. The most important part is Saturday because Saturday, government offices are closed.
Okay
That's
po.
when they come, most of the patients come. Yun. How do I do that?
Yes
At the end of the day, I just walk into the chapel and pray.
Ay,
That's
okay
it.
po.
For about 10, 15 minutes. Then I go home. But make sure I don't want to bring my problems or patients home.
So you leave it at the hospital po.
Yeah, but then again, some patients would be, Doc, can I get your number? So mahirap naman. Ako, I don't want to be selfish na hindi ko bigay yung phone number ko. Sabi ko naman, okay, here's my phone number. You can call me anytime. But please, until 11 ng gabi. So, I mean, sumusunod naman sila. Kasi nakakahiya naman kung hindi mo bigay yung phone kung may emergency. Kawawa naman yung pasyente.
Yes po.
You're being selfish, di ba? Okay, next slide. So, okay, next. Okay, this is GAD, Generalized Anxiety Disorder. Next. So, again, that's what I said earlier. Generalized anxiety disorder is pervasive all throughout the day. But panic attacks, they come and go, come and go, come and go. Okay. So, which do you think is easier to treat? Definitely, panic attacks are easier to treat than generalized anxiety disorder.
Yes po.
Okay, next slide. So these are the different mental mechanisms that I wanted to show to you how we deal with stress. Okay, next. Okay, these are the narcissistic defenses. These are not good defenses because you deny the existence of the stress, you distort the problem, then you have projection. You project the source of stress to other things. Okay?
Yes po.
That's, okay, the next. These are the immature defenses, acting out. Meron kang naging stressful ka, what do? You kick the door, okay? You drink to excess, okay? Blocking is one. Hypochondriasis, introjection. Ito pinaka-common passive-aggressive behavior.
Yes po.
I wouldn't want to have an employee in my unit. Passive-aggressive. Gawin mo nga ito. Yes, Doc, gawin ko yan. Kailangan, Doc. By 2 days time, kailangan ko na yan. Okay, sige, Doc, gawin ko yan. Very aggressive sila, no? Pero at the end of 2 days, nasaan na? Doc, meron pa akong ginagawa pa kasi ganyan. Passive-aggressive talaga. Walang matapos dyan. So difficult to treat that particular, so difficult to handle that particular employee. Passive-aggressive. Why? Because siguro may galit sa'yo.
Yes po.
Next slide. Pahihirapan ka eh.
Not assertive.
Regression is one. Okay. Regression means attempting to return to an earlier libidinal phase of functioning to avoid the tension and conflict evoked at the present level of development. For example, there's a stressful environment, stressful condition. What does he do? He withdraws. He regresses to an earlier level of development.
Yes po.
Okay. Schizoid fantasy and somatization. Okay, next slide. These are neurotic defenses. Neuroticism. Very common yan. Next. Neurotic defenses, again, intellectualization, isolation, rationalization. The most common, rationalizes. You rationalize. Dissociation is different. Reaction formation is also common. Repression is common. Next. And sexualization. Next slide. The mature defenses are the ones that I really would like. Altruism. Anticipation. Next slide. Asceticism. Humor. Sublimation. And suppression. Okay? So, again, all mental processes have biologic basis. Next slide. So, this is anxiety, as I said, one end of the spectrum to the other end, depression. Okay. Stress diathesis, the pathway to depression. Next slide. The diathesis stress model is also known as the vulnerability stress model. Psychological theory that attempts to explain a disorder or its trajectory as the result of an interaction between a predispositional vulnerability, the diathesis, and the stress caused by life experiences. The term diathesis derives from the Greek term for a predisposition or sensibility. A diathesis can take the form of genetic, psychological, biological, or situational. See? Next slide. Okay. So, this is differential susceptibility hypothesis. A person could have a biological vulnerability that, when combined with the stressor, could lead to psychopathology. But that same person with the biological vulnerability, if exposed to a particularly positive environment, could have better outcomes than a person without the vulnerability. You see, it all depends also on one's environment. Next slide. So these are the multiple core and associated symptoms emotional symptoms, physical symptoms, and associated symptoms. Now going into depression. Because at the very start, there was significant anxiety and stress, was not able to cope with that particular stressful situation. He goes into a stage of depression, one end of the spectrum, from one end to the other end. Okay. Now, at the time when the patient was anxious enough, he develops symptoms we need to treat. But then he goes into a stage of depression, we need to treat more. What more should we do? We need to be more aggressive. Okay, next slide. So, these are the neurotransmitters and functions. All of these mental processes that we have are governed by most of these neurotransmitters. If you look at noradrenaline, it is responsible for ergotropic vigilance. If you look at serotonin, it is trophotropic impulse. If you look at dopamine, which is pleasure, dopamine is the pleasure neurotransmitter. The most important neurotransmitter significantly involved with shabu. Shabu is the pleasure drug. Fentanyl is the pleasure drug. Okay? Ecstasy is the pleasure drug. All related to shabu. All related to dopamine. But if you look at mood, symptoms, emotions, and cognitive functions, these are all shared by norepinephrine, noradrenaline, serotonin, and dopamine. See, everything in our system basically is in our brain. Okay? Now, just put it this way. Why do we have cocaine addiction? Why are we addicted to opioid? Why are we addicted to marijuana? We have receptors for them in our brain. Why? Because we are part of nature. Marijuana is a natural plant. Cocaine is a natural plant. Diba? Okay. These are natural plants. Whatever is found in nature is found in us because we're part of nature. That's why we have marijuana receptors in our brain. Until now, it has passed the second reading that marijuana will be legalized, which I don't like. Okay, cocaine, we have cocaine receptors, opioid receptors in the brain. But we don't have shabu receptors in the brain because shabu is synthetic.
Yes po.
Okay. I mentioned earlier that one has to have congruence in thinking, behavior, and emotions. One's thoughts must be congruent with one's behavior and emotions. The effect of shabu is to destroy that connection. The person becomes disconnected. So what would be symptoms? He thinks that he is an angel of God sent by the heavens to cure mankind. He behaves like just an ordinary policeman. Then his emotions, he just laughs and laughs and laughs. Then becomes too paranoid.
I see.
Disconnection. Next slide. So, these are the symptomatology when one has this particular neurotransmitter impairment. You see, lack of pleasure, dopamine. Apathy or lack of interest will be noradrenaline. Anxiety is for noradrenaline and serotonin. For mood thoughts, that's for all the three of them. Next slide. So, this is now the role of serotonin and norepinephrine. Let's go over this quickly na lang kasi, sige, next. Okay. This is the amine hypothesis that the reason for depression is the fact that there is deficit in norepinephrine and serotonin. So if you believe that there is some significant low levels of norepinephrine and serotonin in our brain, the only way to treat depression is to elevate that level of norepinephrine and serotonin, which is what we do. Which is what we do. Okay, next slide. So, to your looking at this diagram, to the left, normal. You have a normal degree of activity. Okay, the neurons survive, but when you so much stress can cause so much steroids, glucocorticoids. That significantly will lower down the level of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. But when you treat the patient with depression, okay, you increase serotonin, you increase norepinephrine, you increase also the brain-derived neurotrophic factor. You increase survivability of the neurons. That's why stress must be treated with significant aggressive tendencies to really treat the particular cause of the depression. Next slide. Okay. Stress, during infectious disease outbreak towards chronicity can cause the following. Just look at yourself during pandemic, during COVID. This is what we have. Next slide. So this is the guide to rapid assessment of depression. Space digs. Sleep, psychomotor retardation, appetite, concentration, energy, depressed mood, interest, guilt, and suicidality. These are what you see in patients with depression. Okay? Next slide. Okay, next. Now, this is now going into the relevance between mixed anxiety and depression. One side is depression with anxiety, which is about 89%. The other side is anxiety with depression, which is about 90%. Both of these conditions can cause cardiovascular disease
Okay.
because of so much stress,
Stress.
so much norepinephrine, so much glucocorticoids, okay? So in the middle is the cardiovascular susceptibility of that particular individual, okay? Hindi ba rin akong bata pa eh, pero wala namang stress sa bata eh. Ang stress ng bata is just to relieve the kind of stressful by giving something that would give him pleasure. Pero sa matanda, let's say for example, at the age of 50 or 45, something is wrong with your heart. Okay, next slide. Okay. According to the World Health Organization, depression, anxiety, and other related mood disorders are the most prevalent causes of chronic illness. Anthony Phillips, the scientific director of the Canadian Institute of Health Research Institute of Neurosciences and Mental Health and Addiction, was quoted as saying, "Using the power of molecular biology, Stephen Ferguson and colleagues provide novel insights that may be the key to improving the lives of so many individuals coping with these forms of mental health." Next slide. So, experts at the University of Western Ontario shed light on the biological link between stress, anxiety, and depression. The three appear to be related as per the new findings. Okay, next slide. This is the triadic relationship of stress, anxiety, depression, and cardiovascular disease. That's stress, depression, anxiety, and depression at the middle. Okay. Next slide. So, next. Now, this is one model, okay? Can you go on to the next slide? Press and press. Let's say, for example, when you have diabetes mellitus, you have significant primary medical condition that may impact on one's premorbid coping skills. How do you cope with that particular condition? You are not diagnosed to have diabetes mellitus, okay? Mahirap ang may diabetes. It's a lifetime disorder, okay? So, you may develop cardiovascular disease. But with diabetes, you also develop neuroendocrine dysfunction. Your immune system goes down. Everything goes down, okay? Then you develop pathological state called depression. Next slide. So, you have anxiety disorders and cardiovascular disease. You have anxiety disorders, generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic disorder, panic disorder, which will which will cause behavioral changes, less healthy diet, low physical activity, reduced treatment adherence, and more smoking. And the physiological changes will happen, and then you will develop adverse cardiac outcomes, like, for example, hypertension, congestive heart failure, atrial fibrillation. These are the potential mechanisms mediating the relationship between anxiety disorders and cardiac health. Next slide. So that's why it's very important, really. Next slide. Go on. See? These are the factors. Hypertension, diabetes mellitus, hypercholesterolemia, cigarette smoking, obesity, homocystinemia, obstructive sleep apnea, all others. This can also be the subsequent result of persons with severe anxiety, chronic depressive states. Okay? This is hypertension. Okay, next slide. So, next slide. Okay, let's go on. There will be significant differences in the blood because of chronic depression. Next slide. Okay, your heart will also suffer particularly from stress and anxiety and depression. Next. Again, you have platelet dysfunction. Okay. Because of platelet dysfunction and endothelial dysfunction and inflammation, you are more vulnerable to develop strokes. Next slide. Slide, please. Okay, slide, please. Okay, can you animate this? It doesn't play?
Hindi na siya, Doc.
No, it doesn't play.
It doesn't play po.
It can only play in my laptop. That's okay.
Okay po.
It's okay, ma'am. What I'm trying to say is, that's all right, that's all right. You don't need to animate it anymore. Okay, go back one slide, please. The point that I'm driving at is this. When a person has chronic stress and chronic anxiety and depression, the heart will suffer. The heart will have atrial fibrillation and you develop a stroke. Okay. Strokes are very, very devastating. Okay, next slide. So this is the CDC, Center for Disease Control. People who may respond more strongly to the stress of a crisis include people who have lost their jobs, etc., etc. These are the people who are so significantly predisposed to develop severe, severe depression. Okay. Next slide. So the treatment, pharmacotherapy is the best. Okay. Then of course you have psychotherapy, family therapy, interpersonal therapy. Okay. For one who has, let's say for example, panic attacks, one form of treatment would be behavioral therapy. Okay. Kung natatakot na siyang pumunta sa kabilang, let's say, 2 blocks away, tell him, pumunta ka muna sa isang 1 block away, tapos balik ka kaagad. If you feel good, okay, do it again. Balik ka na naman. Then if you feel good again, do one more thing, another block. Kakayanin mo yun eh. You are desensitized. Okay?
So it's all about gradual voluntary
Yes.
exposure to the situation that
Gradual
makes that person
sensitization or desensitization. Gradual sensitization and desensitization.
Yes.
Okay. But if one person has significant, let's say for example, obsessive compulsive disorder, one has to really be given medicines because medicines would be the best treatment for obsessive compulsive disorder.
Okay po.
Yes, because there's something wrong in the brain.
Yes po.
Okay.
Which is unlike sa panic po, Doc.
Panic is different.
Na pwede
yes.
yung behavioral na approach.
Behavioral yun, yes.
Yes po. If wala lang yung medicine, Doc, yung in terms of countering panic, there's no other way but to expose that person into a situation that
Of
makes
course,
him
yes.
crazy. Yes
But
po.
my way of handling panic disorders would be,
Yes po.
basically, I still start with something like serotonergic drugs. Because these are the ones that really, I mean, the neurotransmitter systems really involves serotonin.
Yes
So
po.
I start them with serotonin. And then I also add, the most important part really is to relieve that particular panic symptom with benzodiazepine.
Benzo po.
I'm not going to give Valium because Valium stays long for a long time. If you take Valium, then it is metabolized, it goes back into the circulation. It's another type of tranquilizer. Okay, but so the effect is longer lasting.
Yes po.
I'd rather use alprazolam Saynor kasi it's quick. Only for a short hour, about 6-8 hours. But the best is clonazepam, which is the best medicine for panic attacks.
I see po.
But I'm not going to give that for a long period of time. Because these medicines are addicting, are dependency producing. Not an addicting, but dependency producing.
Doc, correct me if I'm wrong again. Talking about, since that you mentioned about serotonin, is serotonin responsible dun po sa ating resilience, sa coping?
Well, serotonin is not just the only thing responsible for our resilience.
Yes po.
Because when one has to develop resilience, one has to develop some degree of motivation. One has to develop some degree of cognition that definitely I should do this.
I see
Okay,
po.
then it has to do something with serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. All of those three neurotransmitter systems.
Okay
And of
po.
course, the other one would be glutamate. Glutamate. Glutamate is the excitatory substance in the brain that fires the brain cells. How can you be motivated if you're not fired by one neurotransmitter system, like for example, glutamate? Kaya nga yung mga pasyente na mga babae na may migraine attack, okay, I would caution them, huwag kayo masyadong kumain ng ng mga Chinese food kasi nilalagyan na ng Ajinomoto which is monosodium glutamate.
Okay po.
Lalo mag-trigger ang migraine nila.
Doc, kanina you were talking about these chemicals, the norepinephrine, the serotonin, and then the dopamine. Yung sa may depression, yung i-increase po is yung norepinephrine and then yung serotonin.
Yes.
But then the dopamine is
Not much.
not much.
Not much.
Doc, yung dopamine, nabasa ko lang po.
Yeah.
Ito po ba yung responsible kapag, or is it correlated with those who are practicing instant gratification? Like for example, cell phone. Tapos rewarding po siya.
Yeah.
So nag-i-increase po yung dopaminergic
Of
levels.
course. See, coffee,
I see.
cigarette
Okay.
smoke. Yeah, nicotine. That's why some people, for a long while, for a long time, when I was when I was a student, I would go with my friends. We'd smoke. We group study. Because nicotine is a pleasure neurotransmitter.
Kaya yun, yung iba po na nadidepress, despite of the feeling of being depressed, since that they're engaging with those pleasurable na mga activities, intact pa rin po yung dopamine nila.
No, true.
Yes po.
But dopamine, there is one thing about dopamine, okay? Because dopamine has been significantly attributed to the part that is so deficient, so important for anticipatory fear. Yeah. So, why is dopamine so important in terms of anticipatory fear? We don't know. But definitely the fact remains that dopamine gives pleasure. So, why is there anticipatory fear when one is significantly low with dopamine? Why? Because wala siyang pleasure eh. Okay? That's something else.
Yes po.
Okay. This is what I said. Stress causes atrophy of hippocampal neurons. And these are significantly reduced. The volume is reduced. Okay. Hippocampal volume is significantly important because the hippocampal neurons are responsible for our memory. Next slide. Yan, go on, next. Next. That is what I showed earlier. Go on, next. So, this is anticipatory anxiety. It's a common among people with phobias and other anxiety disorders. Okay. If you know that you will soon need to face the object of your fear, you might develop physical and emotional symptoms of your phobia, such as an upset stomach, shaking, or even a panic attack. For example, you're now going to take the final exams. 15 minutes before the time, andyan nagbi-build up ng anticipatory anxiety mo eh.
Yes, po.
So what do? You need to go to the comfort room to make wee-wee, ano? So you anticipate it because there's going to be, it will either make or break your life. Okay,
Yes, po.
next slide. So, how can I eliminate stress from my life? Okay, our goal is not to eliminate stress, but to learn how to manage it and how to use it to help us. Okay, how do we do that? We must have a good way of trying to use our mental mechanisms,
Yes, po.
how to cope with our stress. Next slide.
That's a very blunt saying, Doc, no? Yung previous slide, previous slide that you're not going to totally eliminate stress.
Yeah.
You cannot,
Yes, yes po.
because stress is vital for us.
Yes po.
We need to be driven. We need to be stressed sometimes. Okay, so this is what you call EU stress, normal stress.
Yes po.
But abnormal stress is distress. Di ba? Okay. It has been found that most illnesses is related to unrelieved stress. If you are experiencing stress symptoms, you have gone beyond your optimal stress level. You need to reduce the stress in your life and to improve your ability to manage it. Next slide. Become aware of your stressor and your emotional and physical reactions. Kaya nga tinatanong ko, saan ka ba nai-stress? 4 lang yan eh, o 3 lang. Bahay, family mo, school, kung nag-aaral ka, trabaho mo, o your friends. Alamin mo kung ano nakaka-stress sa'yo. Kung yung friend mo na nakaka-stress, hindi mo friend yon. Yan, friend mo siya. Di ba? Kaya lang, kung ikaw naman masyadong rigid, so conscience-laden, ba't ko naman siya i-unfriend? Napakasama ko naman kung i-unfriend ko siya. Then you have to manage your stress, di ba?
Yes po.
May mga tao kasi masyadong conscience-laden eh.
Yes po.
Hindi he cannot even hurt a fly. Something like that. Cannot say no to a friend, to a person. Next slide.
Too agreeable.
Recognize what you can change. Sino yung saint na meron ganito? Lord, give me the courage to accept the change, to accept the, sino yun? Saint, Francis of Assisi, di ba? Di ba ganon?
I'm not familiar with it.
Yes
Give
po.
me the courage to, to accept the change, that I need to change whatever, ganon.
Yes po.
Next slide. Reduce the intensity of your emotional reactions to stress, okay? Try to temper your excess emotions. Put the situation in perspective. Do not label on the negative aspects and the what ifs. Kaya nga sinasabi ko, ma'am, kasi ang buhay mo puro baka eh. Baka ganito, Dok eh. Baka ganito, Dok eh. Baka.
Yes po.
Okay. I would always say something like the ones that said, there are only 3 days that God has given us. One is yesterday, okay? There's nothing you can do anymore about it because you cannot undo what has been done. The other one is someday. Hindi pa nangyayari yun eh. So what we should do is we have to do something today. Do the things that you need to do today, but you must look at someday that some things that you do today must be good for you someday. Because again, there are only 2 dates that God has, there are 2 dates in your life. It's like a book. One is the front cover, which is your date of birth. The back cover is your date of death, di ba? In between are the leaves, the contents of your book. So in between date of birth and date of death, that is how you run your life.
Just a quick reflection on katong sa previous slide, Doc, and what you have mentioned.
Yes.
No? I think at the end of the day, it really boils down on how you act on your present realities.
That's true.
Yes po.
That's definitely true. Don't go beyond.
Mm.
Okay, next slide. Learn to moderate your physical reactions to stress. Okay, relaxation techniques yun eh. Okay, next. Build your physical reserve. Okay, maintain your ideal weight. Avoid nicotine, excessive caffeine, and other stimulants. But my God, sometimes it is so nice to have coffee. Coffee is such a good stimulant.
Yes po. To start the day.
And then coffee and smoke cigarette. But definitely, I'm not trying to promote, smoking.
Yes po.
Next slide. Maintain your emotional reserves, okay? Get some degree of mutual relationships, friends. Increase your social sphere.
We need friends, Aubrey.
Yeah, we need
We
friends.
need to connect ourselves to others.
Expect some frustrations, failures, and sorrows. Always be kind and gentle with yourself and be a friend to yourself.
Be kind to
So
yourself.
these are the preventive measures. Exercise, take up a hobby, learn to relax, get enough sleep. Okay, next slide. So, we have to decide now in which type of world we live in, if and when this pandemic is over. It's not yet over. So next, this is Van Gogh. There's nothing in the world as interesting as people, and one can never study them enough. So my dear friends, and my 2 wonderful hosts, thank you for this day. Thank you for this invitation from Father Orius University. Somehow, I could remember still. At my age now, I can vividly still recall when I would sit at the canteen, cafeteria. Okay, the old building and the church, the old building, in between this cafeteria. And I would sit down in the evening to wait for my mother who would come from her master class.
Yes po.
Yeah.
You still remember po?
I still remember that because I would coach my mom because meron siyang assignment eh, mi ultimo adios. Adios, something like that. And then of course, when Orius college already built that building. Yung building na yan doon, facing JC Aquino.
Yung sa CBS.
Okay.
CBS.
College
There's
Building
no
South.
building yet coming this side. Okay, that one building lang.
Yes po.
And then there's a house of my friend there. We would get, I mean, I have wonderful moments with the Father Orios, definitely, college.
There's so many fun memories.
Fun memories.
Yes po.
Doc, meron po mga questions
Sure.
here na galing sa mga viewers natin.
Sure.
So, first question po is there a clear line between sadness and clinical depression, or is it more of a spectrum?
No. There is sadness. There's a clear line. Okay, let's take one example. You lost someone in your life. Let's say you lost a father that's been close to you, okay? Or you lost a boyfriend, a girlfriend, okay? You grieve over that loss, all right? Now, how much time do we allow for a person to give that grieving period? The normal way of grieving, the physiological grief, normal grief is about 6 months. If you go beyond 6 months and then 1 year, you're still grieving, that's pathological grief. That's no longer normal sadness, that's pathological sadness. We need to intervene. You need to let go, move on. But it's so hard to really convince people who have experienced that particular tragic loss to just say, move on ka na. Because it is in the degree of the intensity of how they were together. Di ba ganon?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why whenever I have those particular moments of discussion with my students, I would always ask my student, if you lose a boyfriend, your boyfriend for 2 years, how much time will you be able to have yourself to be able to recover? Some would say, Doc, 1 day.
Grabe ka.
Some would say,
Sana all.
Sana all.
some the others would say, Doc, siguro mga 4 months, 3 months, ganon. Depending on how I meet with friends again. If my friends would help me recover, I can recover in 1 month, ganon. But some would say, oh, he goes, okay, 1 day I have another, I can pick another one.
Yes po. But Doc, it also depends, Doc, no, on the severity of the feeling of moving on.
Oh, definitely.
Yes po.
Okay.
Yes po.
By what, how to move on? In which aspect of moving on? Okay, how can you do that? Move on. Paano, Doc, mag-move on? Eh, nawala yung partner ko for many years. 9 years kami magkasama, nawala eh.
Yes po.
Okay. Okay. So, mas mahirap kung if you were, the pandemic has really taught us a lot of things. You die, okay? You die without being seen by your relatives because you definitely thrown into the crematorium. You're not even, wala kang vigil eh.
Yeah.
See?
I see. Sige po.
So, may another question pa po dito, Doc.
Yes.
Can anxiety or depression be completely cured, or are they conditions that require lifelong management?
Okay. Depression is definitely curable. Okay. Anxiety is also curable. Okay. But somehow, giving medicines would be not enough. Because almost always, when one has a mental health disorder, okay, one has to give medicines really at once, okay. Because let's say, for example, if I have a patient with severe depression, I can do psychotherapy, but it would take me a couple of months to reform that brain for him to recover from the depression. If I give medicines, let's say, for example, I give an antidepressant, okay. The antidepressant that I will be giving to these particularly depressed patients, I will not expect that in 10 days he will recover. In 2 days or in 2 weeks, hindi pa siya magre-recover. Why? Because the medicine that is the antidepressant comes in a tablet form. And when the tablet is taken in by the stomach and into the stomach, it is digested, absorbed, it goes to the liver and recirculates. Then it goes to the blood. Okay. But we know that depression is a problem in the brain. Okay? There's something low in the brain, low in terms of norepinephrine, low in terms of serotonin. We need to lift it up. Okay? When the drug goes with the blood, okay, the brain has a blood-brain barrier. Because not all medicines, not all substances would be allowed by the brain to enter. Otherwise, the brain will have significantly suffered. So, there is what we call a blood-brain barrier. Okay? So, if I give 10 milligrams of, let's say, a drug, it is now going into the blood, okay? That 10 milligrams will not go to the brain, only point something will go to the brain. So, you start building up the amount of drug in the brain. And it takes about 3 to 4 weeks before we see the effects of antidepressant effects. Now, for that person to recover from depression, we need to give medicines, okay? But psychotherapy is also important. You cannot be an effective psychotherapist if the patient is still depressed. How can he respond to you? He's depressed. How much more, for example, if the patient has schizophrenia? He's totally lost in his own world. Totally depersonalized, out of touch with reality. You do psychotherapy? That's useless. So you start giving medicines at once to control the way he thinks, the way he acts, the way he emotes. When he's better, then you can start psychotherapy.
Yes po.
So it has always to be a combination.
It has a timing also, Doc.
Yeah. With anxiety, however, it's different. Kung pure anxiety, panic attacks, you have to give a combination of the anti-serotonin or serotonin reuptake inhibitor, okay, to increase the amount of serotonin, okay, but you need to give also a small bit of tranquilizer.
Yes po.
But you cannot give the tranquilizers for a long period of time. You cannot. So again, you have to do psychotherapy, either behavioral, psychodynamic, interpersonal psychotherapy, or cognitive behavior therapy. The choice would have to be different in terms of, that's why it's most important when I have a patient with this particular condition, particularly adolescents, young adults, okay. I always ask them, please have a psychological exam. Because the psychological evaluation, the psychological exam will tell me what your conflicts are. Why you have those conflicts? How you look at yourself? How you look at your family? For example, sentence completion test, okay? My mother is blank. You complete that sentence. If you say, my mother is a nagger, then you have some conflict with your mother.
Yes po.
I feel worthless, then you have some significant problem with yourself. So, the psychological testing, the test exam is very important. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. I was invited by the Office of Civil Defense to talk to the employees, the workforce, optimizing mental health in the workforce. I said, the best way would be, okay, I will show you what you can do. As a side bit, get hold of the Myers-Briggs inventory, personality inventory. It will tell you what you are, who you are, and how you are in the workplace. Whether you are you're a good follower, a good a negotiator, or what. This is the Myers-Briggs.
Yung MBTI po, Doc.
MBTI.
Yes.
Yes.
I see po.
Yes.
Doc, since that you mentioned about medicine, kasi may iba po kasi na meron silang fear when you're going to take medicine.
The what?
Meron po kasi silang fear because meron pong kasing, yung assumption po nila is meron pong possibility that you're going to be dependent on drugs. So what's your take on that, Doc?
There's something else, no?
Okay po.
I don't want to be dependent on drugs. No, I'm not going to make you dependent on drugs. That's what some patients say. Because sabi nila, Doc, kasi anong side effects dyan? I mean, it really irritates me pagka gano'n ng tanong kagad ng pasyente. Although, they have the right to know, ano? Sabi ko, anong magiging side effect niyan, Doc? Hindi mo pa nga nasusubukan ng effect. Side effect na iniisip mo. You're so negative. So, the best thing that you can do is trust me muna. Kasi pagka nagtanong ka, anong side effect niyan? Wala kang trust. Wala kang trust sa akin eh. Wala kang trust within yourself dahil hindi ka magiging masama. Trusting is very important.
Yes po.
Subukan mo muna. And then you have my number. You call me whenever you have something unusual. See?
I see.
Okay?
Okay po. Thank you po.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So, Doc, here's another question po from Sir Franz Cobillas. So this question is for Doc.
Yes.
So in a world full of reasons to be anxious, rising uncertainties, global challenges, and personal struggles, what message would you offer to bring comfort, hope, or perspective to those who feel overwhelmed or anxious?
Oh, that's a very heavy-handed question. Okay. Just trust yourself that you will survive. That's all. Trust yourself. Give a happy and contented life. That's it. Balance leisure and work. Balance your time. But time management is important because if you are such a very important person, you're a mover, you're a doer, let's say, you're a very well-organized person, you still have to manage time. Time management is important. In this changing world, my God, Diyos ko, you have to be there, you have to be there, you have to be there, you have to be there. No, you can't do that. Time management.
I see.
And then, of course, trust yourself that you will survive. That's all. Karoon ka lang ng sariling, yung bang feeling mo na, kaya ko to. Kaya ko. Kakayanin ko to. Hindi na yung, kaya ko to. Okay? Kasi the moment you see something, yung parang anticipated mo ang isang trabaho, isang event na ganyan, if you feel confident, kaya ko yan. Okay? Kung medyo mabigat-bigat ng konti, your reaction will be, kakayanin ko. Okay? See?
That statement, Doc, is very consoling.
Of course.
Because as we human beings, we are moving forward.
Yes, of
Yes.
course.
Yes,
Don't
po.
move
We have to
backward.
move forward. Yes po. Yes po.
That's the slogan of Harris and Walz motto against Trump. We're not going back.
Kamala Harris.
Never go back, yes.
Yes po.
So this is the last question po, Doc. How to help those who are suffering with anxiety and depression who can't afford to seek professional help?
Why should it be difficult to seek professional help? Well, who cannot afford professional
Yes,
help?
po.
Marami namang support groups eh. Okay? So, this is a Father Orius College, very strong university, with a very good psychology department. I'm sure you have BA psychology here, di ba?
Yes po.
Right?
Yes po.
Okay. I would recommend. I would really propose that Father Orius College, the Department of Psychology, would have a trauma center to cater pro bono. Trauma center.
Trauma center.
Ay, sige po.
Okay? And we have also the DSWD, the Women and Child Protection Unit of all government hospitals. Okay? Or the police station have their own desk for that, protection against women. But in the ordinary run of events, I would look at it in terms of, let's say for example, USD is a strong department of psychology. Meron silang trauma center catering to women and children and adolescents.
Okay po, Doc.
And Ateneo has one. Ateneo in Quezon City, Center for Family Ministries, CFAM.
I see. Sige po, Doc. Perhaps the psychology and the guidance office is going to have yes po, to form a center.
I mean, honestly speaking, I
Yes,
mean,
po.
I have had several, I went through significant events in my life that somehow I could never forget. Sometimes I can still relive those days, but I need to move on. Otherwise, I would not be sulking back and looking back into what happened to my life. I went through Center for Family Ministries because I had some family problems before, but that was resolved. And I was happy. I went to Council for Center for Family Ministries in Ateneo. We were referred to that. Okay? And the other one was definitely in 2007. That to me is still, I have my PTSD until now.
Ah, yes po.
Yeah. Honestly. Because somehow, sabi nga ng wife ko, mitsan ng buhay ko yun eh. But I need to cope with it. Otherwise, I will still be, I could not move on.
Yes po.
I'm moving on.
So the goal really is moving forward, Doc. Yeah.
Yes.
Slowly moving
Slowly,
forward.
gradually.
Yeah.
Took me some time.
I see.
So parang moving forward takes time. So
Mm.
you move forward slowly and sir,
And along the way, there should be a someone that is going to process or help you process about it. So yun. That's why I agree dun sa suggestion ni Doc that there has to be a trauma center or
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Father, you should have one.
Okay po.
Because
Okay po.
you have this good media outlet.
Yes po. But we have the guidance office po.
I know you have a guidance office, but the thing is,
Ah,
if you just concentrated within the four walls of your university,
yes po. I see.
so thank you so much, Doc Conde, for sharing your knowledge, especially to our viewers right now, to our Orient and non-Orient communities who are watching. Thank you so much for being here with us, and thank you so much for your questions, and we hope that Doc Conde was able to answer your questions, guys. And if you still have questions, sige, basin maapas pa nato. But for now, we would like to give this certificate of appreciation to Dr. Bernardo L. Conde for imparting his invaluable insights and expertise as resource speakers during the On the Sunny Side episode entitled Understanding Anxiety and Depression during the FSCU Mental Health Awareness Week 2024 with the theme, It is Time to Prioritize Mental Health in the Workplace, given this 23rd day of October 2024 at Father Saturnino Orius University. Signed by the Director of the Guidance Center, Jocelyn C. Oclaret, the Director of the Clinic, Dr. Anne-Marie Gamos, and the Director of Strategic and Communications, Suzette P. Viñas.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Doc.
Very
Thank you so much, Doc.
informative and insightful
Thank you.
presentation.
I'm so pleased and honored to be with you today.
Thank you po. Thank
Okay.
you po.
Thank you.
So sir, unsa pa may mga activities nato sa ato ang Mental
Mental
Health Week?
Okay, so for the Mental Health Week, we are inviting you, the guidance office is inviting you to our activities. We are having our interactive exhibit at the lobby. And then this 4:30, we are going to have our Zumba. So
Okay.
yun, so the activity will be until Friday. So yun. So thank you.
So thank you so much, Doc Conde.
Thank you,
And-
Doc. Salamat po.
And sir, murag later 4:30 natay sayaw-sayaw.
Yes, manayo ta.
Manayaw ta sa ato ang asa gali dapit sir?
Sa CB Mini Park.
CB Mini
Yes.
Park. So see you there, Orians. Kay it's our time to wiggle pangpawala sa kakapoy sa EU days and para ready pod nato kay hapit na ang semifinals.
Yes, so dapat ma-warm up ta, no?
Yes, ma-warm up ta. So, karon, mura magkanang, we would like to invite our viewers, the Urian community, to watch our next episode kay live ta sa CBE Function Hall because natay content creation with Hello Shane. Ayan. So, sir, do you have any final message to our viewers, greetings, and shout-outs?
Unsa man siya, takeaways.
Yeah, mura siya takeaways.
So yun, that's why it's very essential for us to be aware on the discussion kibali sa mental health, no? Labi na sa kaning discussion about depression and anxiety, for us to know siguro it relates on our self-awareness, no? So of course everyone should start there, no? Para makabalo po ta sa atong mga vulnerabilities, no? Sa atong mga strengths, sa atong weaknesses.
Tama.
So of course everyone should start there sa ato ang self. Okay.
So, sa ako apod, sir, no, kay it is really important to trust yourself. Inana, sir. Kaya usahay manggod tungod sa kakapoy, tungod sa ka-stress, or tungod sa kadaghan nimong buhaton, murag, mawad-an kag pagsalig sa imuhang kaugalingon, nakaya nimo.
Mo galing na ikanta nga, learning to trust yourself.
Hala sa
Love yourself, joke lang ito.
Love yourself.
Anyways.
So, and also, it is really important to understand about anxiety and depression, sir, kay mapaglinlang ra ba ni sila, sir,
Correct,
na
correct.
kanang abi nimo okay lang, abi nimo kanang chill lang siya, na kanang mawala ra siya, pero at the end of the day, kay ko ana di ay, inani na day siya, and you don't know what to do kay you don't know anything about it, ma'am.
Yes, munang it's very important and now we get to know the difference between the two.
Yep. So thank you so much once again, Dr. Conde, for
Thank you, Doc. Salamat
sharing
kayo.
and paghatag sa amo og knowledge about anxiety and depression. Na mura siya ko answer no, ang anxiety pag ma-build up mahimo siyang depression. Yes. So learn to love yourself, trust yourself, and be kind to yourself. Nakaibasin ko sa nakai-shoutout, sir, imong Bebe Loves, imong family.
Shout out dahil sa ako ang mga kaubanan sa guidance office. Thank you kaayo.
Yay!
Ma'am Lorena, Ma'am Inday, Ma'am Zo, Ma'am Enya, Ma'am Bea. And then also, I would like to thank the SEO, Ma'am Sus, salamat kaayo. And then this activity, though this is spearheaded by the guidance office, but then this is in collab pod with the clinic, the DSA, and also I would like to thank our VP for Student and Alumni Affairs, Engineer Zenaida Diazura. Thank you kaayo, VP Sen, sa pag-support aning activity.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I would also like to say hi to my family and to my friends who are watching right now, and to you, charot. And also to my
Description.
SEO fam, Ma'am Suzette, Ma'am Kakay, Angelo, the SAs, and Sir Charles. Thank you so much for everything. Charot mo hilang.
Everything.
Yeah, for everything. So, I guess that's all, sir,
Yes,
no?
oo.
Thank you so much, everyone, once again, for watching our live every Wednesday sa ato ang mga ganaps every Wednesday. This has been your Ka-Chit Chats every Wednesday. Your low-key mysterious girl, Aubrey Raven Lucica, together with
Carl Adam Soria, your guidance counselor.
saying thank you and God bless us all.
Thank you. Salamat.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.